Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. I now have with me Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate, and Yemi Adamolekun, executive director. Enough is enough. Well, we've had quite a number of subjects today. We've discussed coalition politics, yes. Opposition politics, led by Malam Nasi El-Rufai, who is saying all the opposition parties should come together so that they push out the Tinubu administration, push out the APC itself. We discussed Rivers also with Mr. Abubakar Yusufu, former campaign spokesperson for the Kwankwanso presidential campaign in 2023. We also discussed very briefly the situation with the Kano Emirate law and the recent ruling from the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja. And then we had Ufoma from EIE, Enough is Enough Nigeria. She's a senior program associate, talking about the 15th anniversary of Enough is Enough, which was established after the protests of March 15, 2010. It came to fruition on March 16, 2010, and it's been 15 years since then. And then we had Akogun Tola Adeniyi, veteran journalist, former MD Daily Times, former director, Nigerian Institute of Journalism, former regional editor of the Daily Times in Ibadan, X this, X that, X this, X that, talking about journalism, because the Nigerian Union of Journalists is 70 years old today, and he has been in journalism for more than 60 years. So we had this broad conversation about the state of journalism and the impact of journalism in the making of society. I'll start with you, Yemi Adamolekun. I saw your article in This Day Today at page 34, where you were talking about the importance of advocacy and that every generation must define his own destiny or lose it. Let's start with you.
Thank you. I'll start with the journalists, really, because this is a media house. And I think, you were the one mentioning to me that there was an event in Abuja yesterday, and the nuance of the fact that journalism provides a platform for others to express their opinions, be seen, be heard. But the journalists themselves then get kind of lost in that mix. But I was glad to hear that they did have an event yesterday to kind of commemorate 70 years. It is a significant milestone. But the question you asked Mr. Tola during your interview that I think it's interesting about how the nature of journalism has also changed and what that means for the industry. A journalist, to call yourself a journalist, you needed to be trained. But as you said, what we have now, we have citizen journalists. Anyone who has a story to tell, who has an opinion, who has a point of view, can open a blog, open a YouTube channel, open any type of online media platform to express not only their opinion, but also give a platform for other people to express themselves. Everybody's social media handle almost becomes their own platform of espousing their own opinions and their thoughts. And I remember when Enough is Enough Nigeria started, it was one of the reasons why we used social media a lot, because it was free. We didn't need to deal with gatekeepers in the media. We didn't need to pay for space or time. We could just use social media platforms to express our opinions. So the shifting nature of journalism, again, it used to be also very clear. There was radio, there was TV, there was print. But now a print house also has a TV station. Politicians have TV stations and radio stations. So the space is getting quite muddled. Then obviously there are political allegiances of different platforms. But I think what will eventually happen is that citizens who want to find out the truth will know what platforms to go through. Because at a point in time, you go to a platform that in a sense almost just reinforces your bias. So also people's worldviews are not being exposed to different types of thoughts and thinking. But an interesting time that we're living in terms of how media controls and shapes narratives and thoughts. But congratulations to the National Union of Journalists on 70 years. And wishing you many more years of shaping narratives and setting agenda for the nation. Because I think the media has that role, but where we are in Nigeria, where media ownership and individual practitioners, alliances sometimes skews objectivity in presenting the issues of the nation. And that's very much needed, especially in a country like ours. On to Rivers House of Assembly. I think what I find with both Rivers and Kano is really back to the issue of the challenges with our judiciary. In the Rivers case, the Supreme Court basically decided on a case that was not before it. And so it makes you wonder, I mean, Dr. Abati, you're the lawyer, unless I'm missing something. That's my understanding of what has happened. And just makes you wonder what exactly is going on. And so I think for me, I was very encouraged to see, I think, a group of retired justices put out a statement actually condemning the Supreme Court judgment. And that we don't see often, but I'm not quite sure what can then be done, because we had this argument on the show a while ago around the Supreme Court's judgment being law because it's final. So if other judges are putting a hole in it, what does that mean? Where do we go from that? Do they reverse themselves? It'll be interesting to see how that really plays out. Same thing with the Emirates. The appeal court has stepped down, given judgment, but technically they're two. So, I mean, the former emir is still in the palace. Emir Sanusi is also in the palace, and it's really quite disturbing. Emirates issues or traditional rulership issues are state-level issues. It has nothing to do with the federal government. And the federal government's hand is clearly all over what's going on in Kano, as it is what's going on in Rivers. And that's really quite disturbing when we're also making a claim, especially this administration, that we want to pursue federalism. And lastly, EIA at 15. I share my thoughts, as you said, in today's This Day. And the quote is a play on Frantz Fanon's quote, "Every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it." And for me, it's been a real privilege serving my generation over the last 14 years that I've led the organization. But we're still dealing with the same issues that led to the protest 15 years ago. Today was the protest 15 years ago. You fast forward 10 years to 2020, you had the NSAS protest. Fast forward another 5 years. And one is asking, in a country that a majority of the population are under 35 or 30, depending on the statistics you're looking at, it's still a country that is not focused on its citizens, and it's not designed to allow its citizens to be their best selves. And that ties to the first conversation you had about opposition politics. In all the conversations that you had, there was nothing in there about the people of Nigeria. It was just about power. Who wants to be president? Who are we aligning with? Who is going to be on the tickets? Who is going to step down, president or nothing? It was everything around the players, but nothing about the people of Nigeria. And EIA's kind of heart and what we're trying to get citizens to see, that until citizens decide that they want better and realize that they deserve better, and can push either going into join a party, form a party, whatever, or just the people that have been elected to serve, holding them accountable and making it clear that their decisions have consequences. We will continue to be dancing around this table.
Mr. Ologun.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So let me start by congratulating Enough is Enough.
Thank you.
15 years of strong advocacy. And the question is still on the table. Is the stakeholders on the other side responding positively? And I think a lot still has to be done about that. And some of the key players eventually are beginning to lose the steam when the expected response, hasn't been glaring. I just want to counsel, we probably reinvent and find how to engage these issues differently, because it appears as if the mindset of those who are expected to give the transformational change has been settled for perhaps selfishness and going there to engage their personal interest. And again, in the mood of congratulations, I say congratulations to NUJ. 70 years is no joke. NUJ rolled out in 1955, with very close inclination to the Nigerian Labour Congress, towards our gaining the political independence from the colonialists on October 1, 1960. And so far, so good. There had been several casualties, several sacrifices made. And I also register my respect to Ologun Adeni, a veteran in that field. And I quite appreciate his mentioning the place of journalism, of advocacy. And I think we need to do more with that. And I recall recently, though I'm trained in law and public relations and, of course, human resource management.
You are also a journalist.
Yes. You know, I recall when
and you have a good phone. Anybody with a phone is a journalist.
I recall when I was keenly disturbed by the cholera coming when I saw the open defecation on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway axis, Wariwa. And I went on advocacy, you know, on radio. And interestingly, and permit me also to commend the Ogun State government in this and Lagos State. The government responded by saying, let us fight this open defecation. And I've gone back monitoring, and I can say clearly today that that fight has been gameful. So we need to engage issues that border on the citizens having their meaningful lives. So I would say to journalists, don't be discouraged. And again, I also appreciate his mentioning the esteem aspect of journalism. It used to be a profession of pride in those days, but perhaps because of the economic situation and how some journalists have positioned themselves, maybe when they go for events, the way they rush after people for the so-called brown envelopes. And I think a lot can still be done.
No, it's not called brown envelope. It's called communiqua.
Huh?
Communiqua.
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 I understand.
So please don't use brown envelope.
Just the way the president of the
Because when
Senate...
you finish your event, you must give the communique of the event.
We are familiar with that, Doctor. Just like the president of the Senate converted money to prayer points
Right.
and sent to the emails of the honorable. So it's a profession I love so much because of the risk taken. And when you consider enculturation also in public relations, it's a key assignment for journalists. So we hope that going into the future, the profession will be enhanced.
How?
By their, you know, that's what I tell people. For instance, if we are discussing in other professions I belong to, they make reference to the Nigerian Bar Association. And I tell them, you need to, establish your relevance. You don't delegate that. And so I'm expecting that the stakeholders within the system, particularly the veterans, will still come back. You know, and Ologun mentioned the issue of mushroom entrepreneurs. That is how some of these businesses start. So how do you bring them in? Look into their, their expertise and whatever they have to offer, and see how the profession can collectively benefit from this creativity. And I think it's quite important. And of course, reinvent the ethics of the profession and support the younger ones that are coming up. And again, one issue we have discussed in public relations, in human resource management, is this issue of quackery. Are there, a mechanism in journalism to really identify who are the real journalists, and how can you ensure that you create a space for profitability for those who are really trained in that profession? And that is for that. And that brings us to Rivers State. I do not want to comment so much, but to advise the Rivers State people to look at what happened in Lagos State recently when the
Madam
Speaker Obasa was removed. And he came back to say, no, you didn't follow due process. And Miranda went in.
But that's not true.
Suddenly, the president invited them to Aso Villa, and that issue was resolved. So I believe there are elders in Rivers State, because I see a storm brewing.
All the elders in Rivers State have taken sides.
Even the
Whether
Lagos...
it's for side or not for side, when the bubble burst, you know that environment. You see, we don't have all the time today, Doctor. I've taken my time to study River State. It didn't start now. The same porridge that Fubara is serving Wike served Amechi. Amechi was the arrowhead.
Can we focus on what's legal and what's not legal?
I don't want to discuss the legal aspect because
No,
you see, you know what I said. You know what I said.
Though.
When I read the decision of the Supreme Court, and I cannot fault the decision of the Supreme Court because since 1963, when we became a republic, it became the highest court in the land. But I said, and you can decode, that I felt I was taken back to the Nigerian law school that I left in 1989 when I read those decisions of the Supreme Court. But thank God some are responding. That of Kano, I am yet to understand what that decision is out to throw there.
That of Kano says status quo antebellum should be maintained until the final determination of the issue at stake.
I know, Doctor. But you see, when we bring out all these maxims, we should come out in clear terms. Because the interpretation...
You're not being clear.
I don't want to be entangled in this discussion, sincerely.
No, but
because the issue of status quo, at what point? Because we have created a scenario in Nigeria where we allow litigants to interpret decisions of court.
Yeah, everybody.
So they throw it in different directions. Why don't you come out clearly? You are no longer the emir. Step aside. I mean, and that's why some will always suspect the judiciary. So I want us to be clearer on this. Fine, a matter has before the Supreme Court, you have to wait. But why all this? Then why don't you advise? Since there is a status quo, wait and talk to Supreme Court to give an expedited attention to this matter. That is that. And coming now to the big one, which is the coalition going on. It's a good one. And I want to encourage all those who are interested.
It's a good one.
Yes.
You want Tinubu to be removed from office.
I'm not saying I want Tinubu to be.
I want them to
learn. I want them to learn from Tinubu. APC started mobilizing in 2013 towards unseating PDP. And I monitored. There was a time I asked Chief Lai Mohammed one-on-one in a hotel. That's sad. This your project. You are not even involving the local public relations practitioner. The man looked at me and laughed and said, we know what we are doing. So they strategized. You recall then the new PDP, a splinter of ABGA, the CPC, and some of them came together and came up with a beautiful story of insecurity and corruption and serious campaigns towards it. But the primary thing was to synchronize the leadership and the structure of that party. And I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. What I see more are interests of politicians saying, no, if you not allow me on this platform, then let me find expression elsewhere. And like some have suggested, I think the man there now is also a veteran in that game. And so me, I'm just watching from afar and asking a question we have asked here today. Where is the interest of the citizens in all this? But some will say 2027 is still some years away. A wise man said that a statesman is interested in the future, but the politician is interested in the next election. So for them, it's about the next election. But how they are now going to galvanize in a way that they will be able to have leadership that can represent the interests of all those parties coming together. It's a different ballgame. As far back as 1959, you recall, when Action Group was trying to cut NCNC, before they knew it, NCNC was with NPC. So it's not been an easy thing. But please, I just want to advise that perhaps we should start shifting our attention from politicking to good governance in the country. And the electorates are waiting, and I hope those people are learning. Because right now, let's isolate El Rufai, for instance. It started from PDP to CPC to APC and now to SDP. And you can count, you can check almost all of them. So for me, I stand for good governance. So best wishes in those coalitions. And those they are trying to unseat, I know they are not also resting on their oars. But please, show people the message through good governance.
Okay, let's take another subject. Now let's go to the United States. The United States government is considering a new travel ban targeting 22 African countries and 21 others from different parts of the world. However, Nigeria is not on the list. This proposed ban is expected to be broader than the restrictions imposed during President Trump's first term. New York Times reported on Friday that U.S. diplomatic and security officials developed a draft list of 43 countries, some of which were included in the travel ban imposed during President Trump's first administration. The draft suggests a red list of 11 countries, an orange list of 10 countries, and a yellow list of 22 countries. Well, Trump, which is provincialism, which is isolationist approach to international relations, but in any case, visa is given at the discretion of the host country. But what does this imply in terms of Trump's approach to international relations, and also what does it mean in real terms for people from these other countries who may have been labeled when eventually that list is again out there? You recall that the original list that Trump prepared, the Trump administration prepared in his first administration, was reversed by the Biden administration. But now it looks like President Trump is going back to that same list and adding more countries. Mr. Ologun, let me come back to you.
You know, to start with, I'm happy Nigeria is not on that list, but I checked.
You never know, we could be there later.
I checked as we speak now, Doctor, and I checked some of those countries are countries that are hardliners, you know, terrorism inclined, and do not want to respect the tenets of peace, you know. And of course, like you mentioned, Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America now. He drives the executive influence, and he has said that it's about his country. And he's free to express that. Though some of the Congress officers also and some of the leadership stakeholders in the U.S. are trying to also present to him the other side of the impact of some of these policies he's ruling out. And I've monitored Trump for some years. He's someone that perhaps if he's going to the moon, he wants to drag you to the sun so that when the heat is hot, you now tell him, okay, let's now go to the moon. Because if you look at his hard line against Mexico in terms of tariff, they've been able to come together and say, okay, let's see how we can come to a win-win situation. And right now, he's also hitting Canada seriously. He's even advocated that Canada should become the 51st state of America. So those are issues. That is America for you. So if he is saying, by virtue of profiling, that we don't want this country, and he has classified it. You have the red list, you have the orange list, you have the yellow list. Then let those countries look at why are we being extended this policy. And then for other countries, fix your countries and then let people also be stampeding themselves to come to your country. But by and large, Donald Trump also has to take it easy. But whether that DNA is in him is a question I cannot answer. But right now, he's the president.
Okay, Yemi.
I mean, I think it's outside of the issue of the travel ban, and I think it's just, as you rightly said, Trump's worldview and the way he's also wielding the power that he has. I mean, we've heard stories of citizens or Americans with green cards who have been denied entry, concerns around people's First Amendment rights to be able to speak. So yeah, there's things that he's doing against sovereign nations, but I'm even putting that in context of things that he's doing technically against Americans themselves. How much more the power that he can wield against another sovereign nation and just say, I don't want you to be in my country. And the list is interesting because you have those that are visa bans, outright visa bans, and then those that are visas are sharply restricted, which Russia is on the list. And he's trying to broker a peace deal with Russia, but he wants to ban their visas. And the yellow list, which is where most of the African countries sit. And I'm looking at some of these countries and I honestly don't understand.
Sierra Leone, for example.
Sierra Leone, for example,
Zimbabwe.
exactly. Benin
Equatorial Guinea.
exactly.
Benin Republic.
Cape Verde,
Yes.
Mauritania, Malawi. I mean, I can understand maybe Mali, Burkina, the ones that just had coups. But so there's no rhyme or reason in the list. Luckily, it's a draft list, so we don't know, as you rightly said, it might be reversed, might not come out at all. But I think the many things that he's doing, Trump hasn't spent 2 months. And so he's just throwing out like a baby in a pram, just throwing out all the toys because he's upset. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I think it was 2 days ago that he gave a speech at the Department of Justice that was very political in tone. So I think there's a lot more that we have to be concerned about President Trump. And the Democrats' lack of response is also disturbing, but let's park it there.
Okay, we'll take one more topic before we call it a day, perhaps. Ukraine has accepted the U.S.-backed 30-day ceasefire proposal and agreed to immediate talks with Russia following high-stakes negotiations in Jeddah. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed the deal, stating that Washington will now push Moscow to accept. The development led President Donald Trump to lift a freeze on military aid and the sharing of intelligence to Kiev. While European allies remain cautious, leaders like Francis Macron and Britain's Keir Starmer hailed the agreement as progress toward peace. Russian President Vladimir Putin has responded by saying that he was not comfortable with the 30-day timescale for the ceasefire. Basically, what President Putin is saying is that he hopes that this is not an opportunity to allow Ukraine to regroup and rearm, and that there are fundamental causes that will need to be addressed, and he would like to have the opportunity of a phone call, perhaps, further talks with President Trump, so that he will know the details of what is being proposed. But the position, particularly among the EU countries, is that it looks like Putin is very hesitant about this ceasefire deal, because even as all these discussions going back and forth, drones and missiles are being sent daily to devastate Ukraine. And even during the week, President Putin, wearing a military fatigue, visited the Kursk region and insisted and directed the Russian military to seize back those parts of Kursk that had been taken over since August 2024 by Ukraine. Yemi, let me start with you.
I'm certainly aligned with the position of the EU, just being suspicious of what really is, what America might throw up, so to speak. And I guess only time will tell. I mean, the war is, I don't even know what the English word I'm looking for. Let me put it this way. I'm glad there are talks for peace. Too many people have suffered, too many lives disrupted, too many lives lost. But I do not trust President Trump, and only time will tell how this plays out.
Okay, Mr. Ologun.
You know, according to Putin, that he is more interested in what will bring lasting peace and the resolution of the crisis that even prompted the warfare. And like Dr. mentioned, that how can he be assured that Ukraine will not use that opportunity to rearm and regroup and launch attack? And on the case of the Kursk, he is saying that at the time Ukraine came, seized a part of it, which they have gotten back, and that the position of Russia is either you get out dead or alive from there. So I think Putin does not want to throw his guard and throw himself off balance as a leader. And on the part of Zelensky, he is also, the president of Ukraine, is coming out to say that he knows Putin very well, that Putin will not tell you no outrightly, and that from his responses, it's not likely to subscribe to the 30-day ceasefire. But like we have said here, we're having casualties. And one of the intentions of Donald Trump, in fact, he promised that he will bring peace to the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. And we hope he succeeds in that. If you ask me, I think we need peace in the world now, except that on the scale of the end time, where is that peace coming from? Because as one is being handled, another is springing up. But Donald Trump will still want to throw his weight around. Whether Putin will trust America or even the European leaders not to set Russia up for a disgraceful encounter is a different ballgame. But for me, I stand for peace. And of course, in the words of Putin, enduring peace. So whatever they can do to still negotiate and think it through. Like a wise man said, it's better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times. I think it will help us and some economies around the world. I doubt if many thought the war was going to last for this long. But that is what they say about war. You may predict you may know the beginning, but perhaps not the end. So we wish them the best.
Okay, finally. Let's talk about public health matters. Nigeria has recorded a total of 25,812 confirmed cases of diphtheria. Medical doctors also call it diphtheria because it comes in categories. Out of the 42,642 suspected cases reported across 36 states, the Federal Capital Territory, and 350 local government areas. However, the confirmed cases cut across 184 local government areas in 26 states. The country has also recorded 1,319 deaths as of March 9, 2025. This is according to the latest data obtained exclusively from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, detailing the situation report of the disease from week 19 of 2022 to week 10 of 2025. And in Lagos, there have been 20 reported cases, and there have also been the report of a student, succumbing to the disease at, I think, King's College, Lagos. And there have been calls for vaccination and for collaboration at all levels and for precautions to be taken by individuals. Yemi, Adamolekun. It's another public health crisis.
Yeah, and to be honest, I haven't quite seen a lot from CDC, so I can't speak to what it is that they're doing or not doing about it. But we've done Ebola, we went through COVID, and the lessons that have come through with those public health situations are education, awareness, information. And as I said, I haven't seen much of that, and I would hope that the CDC would start amplifying that. And when a student in a school like King's College is affected, and so we're not having a conversation about, it's only in a certain segment of society or certain parts of the country, then it makes it more important than that there's a deliberate, some intentionality about making citizens aware. And with the death tolls that we have, it's significant enough. One life is significant enough, much more, over 1,000 people dead.
Mr. Ologun.
Yeah, I totally adopt that brilliant submission, and to say that it's perhaps the King's College report that has brought it to the limelight, and it shouldn't be. We should be highly health conscious as a nation and upscale our equipment in readiness for some of these embarrassing situations. But perhaps traditionally, the moment we handle one, like after coming out of the COVID-19, it was like, let's go on as usual. So I will be appealing to the stakeholders not to quickly jump out of the hygiene protocol, particularly at the individual level, and let government and citizens at different levels of engagement please be on guard so that we don't have an epidemic. It's sad enough that thousands have died. We should be proactive at this stage in the globe. And for those who are passed on, I express my condolence for those who are ill right now, because vaccine can help, treatment can also help. It's just that sometimes when the enlightenment is not strong enough, some don't even know what is attacking them until life has been snuffed out. So we should do everything to ensure that we have a healthy society.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ologun. Thank you, Yemi, Adamolekun, and congratulations once again. As for the case of diphtheria, the relevant government authorities need to do a lot in terms of public awareness, provide vaccination for people. Vaccination, we understand, is free for persons who are eligible. And for individuals, personal hygiene is important. And for communities, environmental sanitation is also very important. And persons have to avoid contact with infected persons because diphtheria is highly contagious. And the risk factor is 50-50. Thank you very much indeed. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.